Your time is up, his time is now. You can't see him, his time is now. The ball might knock, yeah, he's shining now. The game be running, yeah, his time is now. Yo, it's the best damn show on the radio. The game version 1 on your speaker, so here we go. Mike Knox, the Triple X hardcore host with the most, is the explosive, most electrifying coast to coast. Get ready for sports, entertainment, and all that. If you don't like the way he brag, you can really fall back. Confidence is what you call that. Every Saturday from 6 to 7, you know that it's on black. World order, belts glisten so heavenly. So if you don't like it, you should listen anyway. From wrestling to sports to the movies, you name it, yo. Mike Knox, the best damn show on the radio.
I was legitimately hurt, and he walked in and kind of gave me a little hell for it, and it's to the point where I'm like, wow, I get it. I can't even come in the training room. Like, wow, so now I'm supposed to run scared like a little mice because Big Bad John Cena wants to bully me around the locker room.
So you're telling me you finally get to sit down with the trainers to get some help, and he makes you, and he pretty much uses his power to get you out of the training session?
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens a lot. It happened, like, you look at the Miz's story, and, obviously I'm not on the Miz's level, but you look at the Miz's story. The Miz got hazed and got treated like garbage, obviously for different reasons than myself, but, the JBL with stories about him being kicked out the locker room.
Right.
But, he made it through it. And, people thought that the Miz didn't belong there because he came from MTV. And, I didn't think he belonged there either, I'm going to be honest with you. But I will say this, I'm as big a fan of the Miz as anyone, because today that man is the face of the company, one of the faces of the company. And he's extremely talented. And what he did is what David Otunga's doing is, instead of just, resting on his laurels of where he came from.
He's working hard.
He worked hard, right. He put in the work to be a world champion caliber. Obviously you have help. You have to have someone smile on you. But, not taking anything away from The Miz, that man is talented. And that man, I'm not saying that to be political. I'm saying that to be real. Like, I've seen him. The man has got it. Like, The Miz is extremely talented. But, I knew that I had to take a stand, and, I can't be a punk. And the best thing to do is, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down on fire. And I'm going to do it on my own terms, And behind the scenes, we would have our workshops where, Vince McMahon would hold workshops, and he would explain to us how to speak to, the WWE audience and do media training. It was very informative media training, and Freddie Prinze Jr. would help out a lot, and it's like we had professional, like the best of the best, helping us, because they want the product to be the best that it can be, which I, appreciate.
How was that looked at in the back with Freddie Prinze Jr. being there? Because as a wrestling fan, I saw that acquisition, and I wasn't a fan of it, but I don't know what he really came to do. I know what I hear, so I'm not one of them guys radio shows that act like I know everything that's going on, because I don't. We know what we read. Okay, until we speak to guys like yourself. So how was that acquisition of bringing Freddie Prinze Jr. in? Because as a wrestling fan for 30-something years, I go, what the hell does he know about wrestling?
But you know what? He was very well respected, and I'm gonna tell you something. That's one of the coolest cats you ever meet in your life. And you wouldn't think that Freddie Prinze Jr., Mr. Teen Idol movie, all the movies he's done. This is the coolest cat you ever met. And like, if you close your eyes, you would think you was talking to a brother. This dude, that actually tripped me out about how cool he is. And he's like down to earth, like he's real. And and he basically was there to teach us how to be more fluid and natural and our movements between the wrestling moves, and when you're on, and to be comfortable with speaking and addressing the audience, talking or quote unquote cutting promos. And it wasn't necessarily to teach us acting, but it was to teach us how to be more natural. And he kind of served as that, and he helped with the creative and all of that. And it was very, very, very valuable. And obviously with man of his talent, how could he not be valuable? But and he helped me out a lot. He was very, very helpful. I didn't get as much time with him as I wanted to, but
so let me.
It's just one of
why do you think, as long as you were out with the injury, right? And then you come back and you're ready to go, where you let go? That's what I really need to know that for me. I know the audience is out there listening, they're waiting to talk to you. I'm sorry. As a wrestling fan who liked what I saw in the ring, no broke back, okay? Love seeing an African American get a chance, who I think is talented. They waited all this time and then let you go. Why was that?
You know what? I mean, I can't tell you, why as far as from their end.
They didn't tell you why you reported the Future Endeavors team now?
Pretty much, I had a real good conversation with, the powers that be of talent relations, and I had a good relationship with them. Basically, it was just they don't have immediate plans, for me right now. Well, okay, that's fine. Whatever, it's no big deal. I respect that. I'll go my own way, do my own thing. I was injured way beyond the fans actually realized, and we had a lot of it in Toronto, and I actually tore my groin there.
Okay.
And which led to me, I don't know if, when you notice I started wearing a sleeve on my leg.
Right.
I started wearing a sleeve on my leg. I couldn't move. Like, it was just one of those things where my leg was like purple. Like, my whole entire thigh was purple, and I couldn't move it at all, and I couldn't even wrestle. Like, but I was still wrestling. I was still working the matches and working the schedule and traveling. What it did was that injury led to a spiral effect to other injuries. Like, for example, there was an episode of Monday Night Raw where we had a gauntlet match with John Cena, where all of us had to wrestle John Cena one at a time.
I remember that.
And if you remember correctly, Wade Barrett was standing on the announce table where Jerry King Lawler and them are. And that night had an interesting backstory itself. But, my situation, my part of that match was I was just supposed to run in and just light him up in the corner with some punches and just, get kicked and get tapped out. I was very, very, very angry that day, and I let the rest of the guys in the Nexus know because we were all friends. I let them know that when I come down to the ring, and David Otunga, he can know himself. When I come down to the ring, I'm not coming to play nice.
Okay.
And that was and I think that was either actually, as a matter of fact, I had to put the groin, and I had my left arm was fractured. So I think it was after that pay-per-view. It might actually have been the next night after that pay-per-view. As a matter of fact, it was the next night after that pay-per-view because I had extra tape on my left arm, as a matter of fact. If you watch that, you'll see it because I always take my hands when they took my gloves away. So I had left extra tape on my
They did take your gloves away. You're right. Okay.
Right. So basically, I was coming down to, to kind of to set the record straight, and I got in and I threw some punches at him. I didn't throw him as hard as I could, but he felt them. I definitely made sure he felt everything I did. And it wasn't to try to hurt him. It was just to let him know, who you're in the ring with.
Oh, payback's a B. It's okay. You're from Cleveland. I'm from Chicago, so, I got to throw a little something at Cleveland. I'm from Chicago.
Yeah, it's all good.
We make sure I didn't win no championships. But
Cleveland ain't going to win nothing. That's all good.
So,
but,
go ahead. Finish that because I'm very interested in how they felt about that since they were normally the ones being the aggressor in those.
Well, I mean, it was really. Yeah, I mean, they encouraged us, and even John himself, to be real, they encouraged us to be more physical. And they told us, when we did the scenes where we were jumping people, they said we don't want it to look like typical good old-fashioned wrestling beatdown. We want you to come in there and we want you to wreck shop. Like, you put your hands on people to do it in safe places and they'll protect themselves. And they knew to protect themselves because we would come in to make it as real as possible. And, one of the criticisms that we got was that, at the level of the game that we were, being considered rookies, and the only one of us that was really rookie, realistically, was Dave because he didn't have any experience. The rest of us had already been wrestling for like 10 years, independently. But, just to be more aggressive, and that's always been my thing. It's been natural for me. And, when I went down in the ring that night, and he was in that corner, I went in there to throw some knuckles at him. And I remember I was stomping on him here because I was laying him into his ribs, to be honest with you, and he kind of went down, and he was playing his part. He was doing what he was supposed to do, and I started stomping him, and because I didn't have mobility in my left, or in my right leg, because I had the torn groin on my right leg, the sleeves on my right leg, I was overcompensating with my left leg. So as I'm trying to stomp him with my right leg, I ended up hyperextending my left knee. And I had a deep bone bruise on my left knee that I should have had surgery on. And I don't know if you watched it that night. Like, I was stomping him, all of a sudden I stopped and started limping. Like, I literally almost started limping.
Okay.
And then limped over, and then he, gave me the boot and put me in the STFU. And I rolled out of the ring. And I never felt that much pain in my knee in my life. And it got to a point where my knee got so swollen I couldn't bend my leg. Mind you, I was still wrestling with a fractured elbow, torn groin, and
the knee now.
But it didn't stop there. So we end up the night that I got kicked out of the Nexus when I had the match I was tagging with John Cena when he joined us, and it was me and him against Mark Henry and Evan Bourne. The story of the match was that he wasn't going to help me and that I was going to get beat by those two, and then he comes in and eliminates me himself, and and we had a lot of things in mind to make it really, really physical. And I pitched the idea, well, why don't you slam me onto the steps?
Okay, and that's how you picked up the stairs from that on. Yeah.
Yeah. And, because, we did the thing where he threw the steps at me, and all of that. I did it with Derek Young, and it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what, they stated, why don't you slam me on the steps? Because I've done it plenty of times at FCW, with guys that I trusted, knowing that I didn't know, knowing I didn't trust him, and knowing that I didn't know if he was going to take liberties on me or not, because he knew my leg was messed up. And, so I'm like, okay, well, I got to protect myself. I know that this is the end of the road, and I'm probably going to get fired after this because of political reasons or whatnot. And
right.
as well as, there's no secret to John Cena and I did not like each other. So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go down on fire. And, we're going to make it as big as possible. And it ended up being one of the biggest segments of the show. And sure enough, he slammed me on the steps twice, and I landed on the edge of the steps, ended up with a torn calf in my right leg and problems with split disc in my lower back. But so I had all of these injuries, and I limped out of the, got out of the ring, limped, backstage, and stood upright and walked like I had no problems. Shook everybody's hands, and
right.
They're all looking at me like, "Are you okay? Oh my God!" Like even him, he was like, "Man, are you okay?" I said, "I'm good." I gave him the thank you, sir. Can I have another? And he was cool about it. He respected me. He was respectful. He said, "You know what? I wouldn't be okay after that." He said, "Okay, thank you. You did a good job. You made that big." And he commended me on it, which was cool. And then after that, I went back down to the developmental system in Tampa and licked my wounds, healed my injuries, got back in the ring eventually and came up with something new that I was excited to present to the world, but it didn't happen.
See, and that, so before I go ahead and open up the phone line, because the lines are crazy right now to talk to the upgrade Tyrone Evans. Y'all know him as Michael Tarver. 347-637-3859. The barbershop is, listen, I feel like I'm just sitting back getting a cut, and he's telling me a story because y'all heard all the rumors, y'all read this, y'all read that. He's telling y'all what the hell happened. So don't be writing anything else talking about this happened, that happened. He just told you from his side of the story what happened. Now, before I open up the phone lines, I want to ask you this. Now, you recently signed with Florida Underground Wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay. In your opening debut, you had some unfavorable things to say about the WWE, John Cena, Taker, etc. How do you feel about John Cena, Undertaker, the WWE in a whole, and Eddie Kingston?
Eddie Kingston.
I had to cut out.
Oh, that's a throwback. Oh, I love Eddie Kingston, man. I want to tell you this. Eddie Kingston is a talented kid, man. That's a tough dude, man. He's from New York. That is a tough cat, man. And I wrestled Eddie Kingston before I went to WWE, man. That's a bad boy. That's much love Eddie. If y'all don't know who he is, look him up. That's a bad boy.
ROH.
Yeah, man, for sure. As far as WWE, man, like Undertaker always was like so cool to me. Like he always showed me way more respect than he really had to because he's the Undertaker. You know what I'm saying? But that man was just amazing how cool he was and helpful he was. And like I always felt like there were certain people there that saw in me. They saw the truth. They saw it. And he was one of them. You know what I'm saying? And just he would always, I'd be in the ring working out pre-show and beating up on people or whatever and practicing, and he would always jump up and come over and be like, okay, hey, try this, do it like that, do it like this, because he liked what he saw. And have long conversations with him, and that's the man to talk to. And I would ask him for advice all the time, and so I've never heard any bad things about him. I don't have the experience to generate any kind of stories like that. But my experience with the Undertaker was always wonderful.
Okay.
John Cena, on the other hand, they weren't always good. But
go ahead. It's okay. I normally don't allow these words. Would you call John Cena a bitch? I'm